Now, if you've been wanting to get adventurous, properly down and dirty adventurous, then on our first ride, Hero's XPulse 200 proved that it would be the right companion for you. It's light, capable and affordable. But now it's spending time with us to convince us that it's desirable and a better all-rounder as well.
Listen, you can't talk about all-rounders without considering this, the Royal Enfield Himalayan. And as strange as it may sound, I think this can do everything that can and some more.
Yeah, for 80,000 rupees more, ex-showroom, right?
That's exactly why we got some questions to answer.
Yeah, the first question I'd like answered is, why do you still have your helmet on?
No. First question is, which one is better off the road? Listen, you have to admit that for off-roading, the Himalayan does pack some great hardware. Sure, it has the same ground clearance as the XPulse, but it's got longer travel suspension at both ends. And then it's got a motor that has twice the cubic capacity and almost twice the torque. And as you all know, if you want to climb out of the dirt somewhere, you need that extra torque.
Sure, the Himalayan does make a strong case for itself. But going over extremely uneven terrain like we did, the XPulse felt more at ease. The Himalayan, well, it ended up scraping its belly. And the reason was... Yeah, Mr. Rick, would you like to complete the physics lesson here and also talk about weight? Because the difference between these two is some 40 kilograms. And yes, this might have less torque, it might not have that much suspension travel, but then it's lighter and that's why it feels like it's gliding over all the stuff. I'm sure you'll agree.
Yeah, fine, I'll agree that it's a little more difficult to manage because of the weight, but then the ergonomics, man. Like the XPulse, it's built like a bloody dirt bike. You got that weird stand-up posture with your bum out. It's too aggressive. The Himalayan that way is so comfortable when you're standing on the pegs, and the foot pegs are lower, which means if you have to get your feet down in a hurry, if you are sliding or get them back on the pegs, it's just so much easier.
Okay, fine, I'll give you that the Himalayan has a nicer stand-up posture, but when it comes to foot pegs, sorry boss, not gonna happen, because this is more focused. It's clear because it's higher up, and when we were riding off-road, I never once banged the pegs or my boots on rocks that were lying around, which is something that definitely did happen on the Himalayan. We really thrashed these two bikes around on rocky climbs, through slick mud, slush and rain, lots and lots of it. And the weight of the Himalayan was something that PD felt. We even swapped bikes around, and that made things plenty clear. Clearly, you have to work so much more to just keep it on the line, and if that front end wipes, it's a lot of work to just keep it on track. And that's not all. The gearing, it's tall, so you have to work that engine hard as well. I mean, you can't just leave it in second or third like I could do on the XPulse and just slip the clutch a bit and pull it out. On the Himalayan, you really got to bang it through all of that, right?
Fine. In the more tricky off-road stuff, the XPulse is clearly easier. But if you had to blast down a dry, relatively fast dirt trail, the Himalayan just flies. And it's not just that. Aside from all of that, listen, if you're talking about safety off the road, the Himalayan is so much nicer because now it offers dual channel ABS as standard, which you don't have on the XPulse. And of course, braking distances are actually better on the Himalayan.
Yeah, that's fine, but you can't switch off the ABS for the rear wheel on the Himalayan. So riding off-road, this gives you more flexibility. And the feel for the rear brake on the XPulse is just so much better. On the Himalayan, you have no option but to rely on the ABS to get you stopped, right? So if I have to sum this up, between the two, the motorcycle that's more deserving of the Himalayan tag is the XPulse.
Fine. The XPulse might be a little better climbing the Himalayas, but what about getting to the Himalayas? And that does beg a question. Which of these is better for the long haul? You know, all the things you said that make the Himalayan not so great off the road actually make it fantastic for highway use. You know, that bigger displacement, always great on the highway, and that tall gearing doesn't work in the dirt, but its cruising just so much more easily on the highway. And that's hardly a surprise considering that the Himalayan can do over 100 km per hour in just third gear. It's doing just 5000 RPM at 100 kph. That thing's doing 7000. In fact, over 7000 is just screaming away.
Yeah, but please don't make the transgression of calling that smooth. Thank you. Because that big single, you can feel the pulse from that on the tank, on the foot pegs. You can't escape that. By Royal Enfield standards, no doubt.
Enfield singles.
Yeah, correct. We've moved on. Right, so by Royal Enfield single standards, that is definitely very smooth, but it could do better for sure.
Yeah, I mean, but at least there's no buzz on the handlebars. Like, because the XPulse is basically revving so hard because of the short gearing on the highway, the bars just keep buzzing, and over long distances, it's going to keep your palms tingling.
I'll admit it, you really wish the XPulse had a 6th gear, just so it could feel calmer. But the Himalayan isn't as calm as you might think either. You know what gets me buzzing is that windscreen. Like, seriously.
Yeah,
It's always knocking your head around.
Yeah, it depends on your height, what it does to you, because for me, on my off-road helmet, it just makes the peak flutter like crazy. And yours,
Yeah, it's like, yeah. And look at the screen on the XPulse. It's so much smaller, but it manages to do a better job of keeping clean air around you.
I'll agree, but somehow when I'm on the bike, it tends to push a lot of wind right into my helmet's mouthpiece.
Yeah, which is good for you.
Yeah, but that's gonna leave my lips chapped.
Can we please get a stick of Vaseline for this man?
Not for that reason. Out on the highway, the Himalayan does have something else really working in its favor. Generally, the Himalayan just is so much more comfortable. I've always harped about the ergonomics of this motorcycle. I think they are the best ergos on any made in India bike. Thanks to the Himalayan's tall handlebars, you sit quite upright. The slightly pulled back foot pegs are comfortable, and the seat is soft enough that traveling far on the highway is just second nature.
Yeah, and you wouldn't go that much further than the XPulse because the XPulse has better fuel efficiency, right? 4 kpl?
Yeah, but 4 kpl doesn't make that much of a difference because it just has a bigger tank. So if you're actually out touring, we'll be covering about the same distance, maybe a little more on the Himalayan.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I miscalculated that.
And let's face it, Enfield really pushes the Himalayan hard as a tourer, so they've got so many accessories. You can walk into a showroom, get panniers, get everything you want.
Okay, fine. So let's call it 1-all, right? Okay, and on that note, let's shift our focus to the more practical side of things of these two motorcycles, and there's lots to cover on that front. We'll start off with the city. Now in the city, the short gearing really works in the XPulse's favor because you can leave it in 3rd or 4th gear and manage your entire commute pretty much hassle-free.
So that is a bit of a hassle on the Himalayan because in the city, you're constantly in low gears. Like you have to be in 1st and 2nd all the time. And even at 30 kph, you have to be like at the most in 2nd. A constant, like you're working the gearbox all the time.
And if I may add salt to your wounds, I think The clutch is lighter on the XPulse and the gearbox feels so much more slick as well. It's really positive.
That definitely works in our bike's favor. But surprisingly, even though your bike is lighter and this heavy by a significant margin, it doesn't feel so heavy when you're actually moving around in the city.
This definitely managed to mask its weight better in the city. But of course, the lightness quotient is in the XPulse's favor here. Also, the fuel efficiency quotient. This has got that significant advantage nailed down pat in the city. So better commuter for sure.
So coming to the question of which bike is better for tall and for short riders, you can see for yourself that Himalayan, that seat height is nice and low, which is really awesome considering that it's got that mad down clearance as well.
Yeah, I have to agree. 800mm seat height is fantastic considering the ground clearance, but that is 823mm. So it's not particularly high, and I think what helps is that it's slim as well, right? Also, it's significantly lighter, and that if you are short, it will make it feel that much more accessible, but no doubt for the shorter riders, this is definitely going to be the easier bike to get on.
True, but even for taller riders, I'm not entirely convinced that the XPulse is that much better because I'm not very tall, but even I end up sitting quite knees up because of the tall foot pegs. So, for riders of all heights, the Himalayan is the more comfortable option.
Okay, so moving on. Now we've covered it for the tall and the short, but what about the pillions?
Okay, I'll have to admit, even for pillions, the XPulse's seat does feel a little small and narrow, and you end up sitting almost on the grab handles. The Himalayan's pillion seat is flatter, roomier, and a lot more comfortable. So if you'd like to take a friend along for a ride, the Himalayan is the obvious choice.
Coming to the wow factor, neither of these bikes will impress you with their features list. But the XPulse does pack an LED headlight, and its all-digital instrument console gets Bluetooth connectivity for your smartphone. Once connected, you can get call alerts and even use turn-by-turn GPS navigation. The Himalayan, on the other hand, doesn't get anything so fancy. All the gauges are analog, but you do have a small digital screen for some basic information. And you also get a small digital compass. Neat.
And the king of the hill is... great weather, dude. Breakfast, should we? Okay, we don't have a clear answer, but having the Himalayan as a yardstick has brought about some interesting results with the XPulse. First and foremost, it's very clearly defined the XPulse as the go-to motorcycle for off-road.
100% agreed. I think it picks the ball up wonderfully after the Impulse. It is the best off-roader that's built in India, hands down.
And as an Impulse owner, I am hugely taken up with the XPulse. And the second thing is, it's proved to be a better all-rounder than I had expected, to be honest, right?
It does the off-road very well. It does a city extremely well as well. But then...
Yeah, I mean, that's the one area where the Himalayan really scores, right? That easy, long-legged nature that it has. So if you want to travel even a little bit, this feels more enjoyable.
At home on the highway.
Yeah, I think that's that sense of being relaxed that adds to the experience, and that's where it starts scoring. And the third thing for me was the sense of value. It's incredible that Hero have managed to create that bike at that price point.
No, absolutely. I completely agree that if you want a bike, if you don't want to go touring, for example, and want a bike that does everything else, for that price, you can't do better than the XPulse. But I will have this caveat here that if you are interested in even mildly in touring, you have to pick the Himalayan. Even though it's more expensive, it can still be that only one bike in your garage. While the XPulse, well, I think it's a fantastic second bike.
I completely agree with you. I mean, like, I get it. Like, you'll be spending up more, but that for me would be a fantastic second bike in the garage. I would love to have that, but possibly not the only bike, right? And that's when I look at it and I think that, why didn't Hero make a 250cc out of it, or give it a 6th gear? I mean, or just sorted stuff.
It made life so much easier. And same, I mean, I feel heartbroken about the Himalayan. And after making so many ancient bikes, why couldn't I have made this lighter and better? Just, I don't know.
I mean, it's sad to think that we're still gonna have to wait a bit longer for that perfect motorcycle that can take on India, everything that India has to offer.
That one bike to rule them all.
If a bike like that even exists.